Okay. The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt. May I request protocol to export His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt. And to invite him to address the Assembly.
I thank you, Mr. President. In the name of God, Mr. President, at the outset, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate you on your assumption of the presidency of the General Assembly at its 74th session. I would like to seize this opportunity to express my heartfelt appreciation to Ms. Maria Fernanda Espinosa, the President of the previous session. Ladies and gentlemen, our gathering this year comes at a time when the magnitude of all the challenges facing our world is increasing. It is thus imperative that we all engage in an in-depth discussion on the prospects for advancing our work under the umbrella of the United Nations, while upholding the noble values upon which our organization was founded. This can be achieved through reaffirming our commitment to an effective and just international order that is based on dialogue, cooperation, mutual respect, and the promotion of a culture of peace. Egypt, as a founding member of the United Nations and of a number of regional organizations, including the African Union, which we are honored to chair this year. We are also a founding member of the League of Arab States, and we have always possessed our own unique vision and contribution towards addressing the most important and daunting challenges of our time. Allow me here, from this August forum, to present Egypt's perspectives in this regard. Mr. President, respecting the principle of national ownership of solutions to national problems is imperative to ensuring the effectiveness of the multilateral system. Egypt has a pioneering experience in this regard. In recent years, it has embarked on an ambitious plan to comprehensively advance its society. This includes decisively combating terrorism and launching the most ambitious economic reform program in its modern history. This has been conducted in accordance with national plans and priorities, and have wholeheartedly been embraced by the Egyptian people, who have graciously shouldered the burden of its successful implementation in a manner that exceeded all expectations. Regionally, and as the current chair of the African Union, and alongside our African brothers and sisters, we have worked on consolidating the principle of African solutions to African problems. This aims to formulate a comprehensive approach which lays the foundations for development through a continent-wide vision that is based on our common history, unity of destiny, and confidence in our ability to achieve progress towards integration and upholding the interests of our peoples. To this end, a new mechanism has been launched in Cairo, which will focus on post-conflict reconstruction. namely the African Union Center for Reconstruction and Development. Undoubtedly, you are all well aware of the many recent successes of implementing the principle of national ownership, supported by an active African role, which resulted in the realization of a peace agreement in Central Africa, as well as the formulation of a common vision among the various parties in Sudan to manage the transition phase in that country. And here I would like to support deleting Sudan's name from the states that sponsor terrorism in order to acknowledge the efforts of the sisterly state and to enable it to confront the economic challenges it faces by enabling it to interact with international economic organizations in order to fulfill the ambitions of its people so that it would return to the place it deserves among the international family. And based on the principle of national ownership, African countries are fully cognizant of the importance of formulating genuine and effective partnerships in order to address the political and economic challenges they face, and in order to gain access to knowledge and technology and develop African human resources, as well as mobilize the necessary financing and political support. These are all essential to achieving the African Union's Development Agenda 2063. I therefore call upon international, continental, and regional financing institutions to assume their role in financing development in Africa under the most favorable terms. Africa is a continent of promising opportunities. It is a continent that can become the new engine of growth for the entire global economy, especially after launching the Continental Free Trade Area, and after strengthening regional integration arrangements and developing an ambitious strategy for infrastructure. I would like to refer in this regard to the recent initiative launched by Egypt to convene the first edition of the Aswan Forum for Sustainable Peace and Development in December this year, in the city of Aswan, where it will be a platform for dialogue between international and regional actors, including political leaders, financing institutions, the civil society, and the private sector, all to implement international and regional initiatives and mechanisms targeting Africa. Mr. President, the resolution of protracted crises and inherited ones is a necessary precondition for any serious efforts aimed at formulating a more effective international system. The most prominent example of this is the longest-standing crisis in the Middle East, namely the Palestinian cause. The persistence of this cause without a just solution based on international resolutions calling for the establishment of an independent Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital does not only mean the continuation of the plight of the Palestinian people, but it also entails the continued depletion of the resources of the peoples of the Middle East. And I reiterate with a clear conscience what I've stated from this podium over the past few years. I say that Arabs are open to the realization of a just and comprehensive peace. The Arab Peace Initiative is still on the table, and there remains an opportunity to launch a new phase in the Middle East. However, we need bold decisions that restore the rights to the Palestinians, that pave the way for a major change in the reality of this region. And I say this without exaggeration. In the entire world, these decisions would lead to the establishment of a security and economic system in the Middle East that is based on peace, security, cooperation, and common interest. Mr. President, the adoption of comprehensive solutions to address the root causes of international problems is imperative for the success of the multilateral system. This applies to the protracted crisis in Libya, whose people suffer daily from the scourge of armed conflict. This conflict needs to be stopped. It is time to take a bold and decisive stand to address the root causes of the Libyan crisis comprehensively. This can be achieved by fully committing to implementing the United Nations plan adopted by the Security Council in October 2017. It can be achieved by addressing the grave imbalance in the distribution of wealth and power and the absence of public oversight via the Libyan people's elected representatives over political and economic decision-making. We also need to work on unifying all national institutions in order to save our dear neighbor from the ensuing chaos by militias and prevent the intervention of external actors in Libya's internal affairs. Similar to the imperative for a comprehensive solution in the Libyan crisis, a political solution for the crisis in Syria has also become an urgent need. We can no longer afford to waste more time and continue in this vicious cycle which Syria has been enduring for over 8 years. Egypt, while welcoming the announcement of the formation of the Constitutional Committee, nevertheless calls for the immediate commencement of its work without any delay as a fundamental step towards the realization of a comprehensive political settlement in accordance with Security Council Resolution 2254. This should be done in a manner that safeguards the unity and territorial integrity of Syria and its institutions. It eliminates terrorism and must put an end to the bloodshed. And in the same logic, I say that the time has come to take a decisive stand to end the protracted crisis in Yemen through the implementation of a political solution based on the well-known parameters. We need to end foreign interventions by non-Arab regional parties which seek to curtail Arab national security. We also need to address the unprecedented threats facing the Arabian Gulf region, including threats facing navigation, as well as recent attacks on oil installations in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mr. President, the principle of addressing matters comprehensively also applies to one of the most daunting challenges of our time, namely terrorism. Egypt has persistently called for a comprehensive approach in combating terrorism based on the necessity of confronting all terrorist organizations with no exception. Here I stress the need for all to fully comply with the relevant Security Council resolutions and to hold accountable those who support terrorism, whether through funding or weapons or through safe havens or media platforms, in addition to those involved in facilitating the movement and travel of terrorists. And from this podium, I reiterate Egypt's readiness in light of its extensive experience in counterterrorism, its readiness to intensify its cooperation with friendly countries and the United Nations, especially with regards to countering the ideology of terrorism. Here I stress the importance of implementing Security Council Resolution 2354 on the implementation of the comprehensive international framework to counter terrorist narratives. This resolution was adopted on the basis of an Egyptian initiative to uphold the values of tolerance and the renewal of the religious discourse. And speaking of the Security Council, we must work seriously and resolutely to address the imbalance in the composition and the shortcomings in the decision-making process in the Council. We must guarantee a balanced representation in the Security Council. And with regard to our African continent, we must work to rectify the historical injustice our continent has been subject to. I reiterate our commitment to the common African position based on the Isolini Consensus and the Third Declaration, and I call upon you to adopt this just position within the framework of the relevant intergovernmental negotiations. Mr. President, for decades, Egypt has sought to strengthen and deepen the bonds of cooperation with its brotherly Nile Basin countries, with whom it enjoys eternal relations. As a testament to its keenness to further the well-being of the peoples of the Nile Basin, Egypt expressed its understanding regarding Ethiopia's commencement to construct the Renaissance Dam, despite the fact that the latter did not conduct the necessary studies on the effects of this huge project to ensure that no harm befalls the water interests of downstream countries, including Egypt. Notwithstanding, Egypt took the initiative to bring forth the agreement on the Declaration of Principles signed on the 23rd of March 2015 in Khartoum, and this launched a 4-year-long negotiations process to reach an agreement governing the process of filling and operating the Renaissance Dam. Unfortunately, these negotiations have not yielded the desired results. Nevertheless, Egypt still hopes for an agreement that will secure the common interests of the peoples of the Blue Nile in Ethiopia, the Sudan, and Egypt. The continued impasse in the negotiations on the dam will have negative repercussions on the stability as well as on development in the region in general and in Egypt in particular. While we recognize Ethiopia's right to development, for Egypt, the water of the Nile is a matter of life. It is an existential matter, and this places a great responsibility on the international community to play a constructive role in urging all parties to demonstrate flexibility in order to achieve a mutually satisfactory agreement. In closing, Mr. President, Egypt's message today comes in the form of a call for the pursuit of peace, a call for action for the benefit of humanity, a call for cooperation and mutual understanding, a call for sustainable development and the promotion and protection of human rights, and a call for the realization that this is the ideal path for the benefit of the international community. May God aid us all for the good of our peoples. Peace and God's mercy and blessings be upon you.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I wish to thank His Excellency President Al-Sisi of the Arab Republic of Egypt for the statement just made. May I request representatives to remain seated while we greet the head of state.